Hello and welcome to episode number 2 of Gritty Conversations. In this episode, I'm delighted to welcome another good friend of mine, a guy who goes by the name of Nathan Jack, or some of you may know him as NJ Fitness on Instagram. Bit of background around this. Nathan's someone that I've known since I was probably around 18, so about 11 years worth of friendships. And one of the reasons I really wanted to get Nathan on this show is because he's actually taught me so much around sort of determination and never giving up. Those of you who may know Nathan will know he suffered for a long period of time in regards to certain aspects of his personal health, specifically his ongoing battle with what is known as cluster headaches. Some of you may remember the graphic video which sort of made national press at the height of Nathan's suffering a couple of years back. And today we're going to discuss this personal battle in greater detail and really try and demonstrate that some people are fighting battles every day which we can be completely oblivious of. And before we sort of do introductions, I just want to say on record again that I really thank him for not only supporting me in this new venture, but being brave enough to discuss some really personal sort of feelings and topics. And I think it'd be fair to say that some of the things going to be discussed today is probably the first time Nathan's ever really spoken about it publicly. Now, if you follow this man on Instagram, he will need no introduction. It is fair to say that he is positively passionate about what he believes in. So, Nathan, how are you?
I'm right. How are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. Look, I really appreciate you coming on and doing this. You know, and it's always hard, and I've always touched on from the very beginning. This, for me, is a true sign of people's bravery. The fact that they're willing to bear all about how they're feeling, and I really hope that anyone listening to this, or is touched by the story, knows that they can reach out to you. I know that you're sort of part of a few sort of smaller communities of people who suffer with like-minded topics such as sort of your cluster headaches and everything else like that. So let's take it sort of really back and start layman terms. What are cluster headaches for those people that don't really have an understanding of what they are?
It's basically a neurological condition where nerves in your head are affected. So, long story short, it basically one of the nerves controls your body temperature. Is one of the main ones for me. Probably that is the main one for me, body temperature. So in the sense of my nerves in my head go into type of spasm, which then affect the rest of my body, where I go through excruciating pain behind my right eye. So it almost feels like someone's got a hot poker behind my right eye. I do get sensations before to leave me like a sort of warning as to whether I'm going to have an attack. So that can range from a pain in my right ear to a pain to the back of my head, or across a band across the front of my head towards the right. So it's a lot of the times I always get my attacks on the right hand side of my head. So it's a neurological condition. Like you touched on before, a few people might have seen the video a few years ago that I released when I was in a bad place, mentally and physically. But we'll get onto that. But ultimately, it's a neurological condition which affects the nerves in your head.
And is this something that was this from birth, or has something happened, a trauma that's caused this?
Well, from my earliest remembering, I can remember having like really bad pains in my head. And obviously being younger, I must have been about 12, maybe 13 at the time, probably 13 at the time. And I started getting these attacks where it was almost like I could feel this pain in my head, behind my right eye, in my ear, and it was just getting hotter and hotter and hotter in the middle, and a stabbing, like an excruciating pain. Obviously my parents at the time, seeing your child like curling up and screaming and shouting and saying his head's hurting, like banging his head off of the floor, to them, they didn't know what it was. So months and months went by where we were going backwards and forwards to the doctors, to the hospital, having numerous checks. And basically the hospital at the time, because of my age, they thought like it was something that was like a stress that had been released on me because my parents weren't together, so they were coming up with all these things that he's mentally stressed from his parents not being together. It's affected him in this way, blah blah blah, this that. But anyone that knows me and knows like my mum and dad, like even though they weren't together at the time, like it was almost like they were for me because they were both so still supportive and they're still friends. Just because two people aren't together doesn't mean they can't be friends.
Mm-hmm.
So we knew that was nonsense, but I kept getting them anyway. Long story short, it got to a stage where my mum took me to the hospital because I had an attack. It was really long, and said, "Look, we were in there for about 3 days where I was kept having the attacks." And my mum said, "Look, I'm not taking him home until you give him a scan." And the consultant at the time was like, "He doesn't need a scan. Do you know how much scans cost? Blah blah blah, this that." And it was only then when my parents were like, "Right, if you're not going to give him a scan, we'll pay for one. We're willing to pay for one, just to see, to give us peace of mind, to make sure that there is nothing there, that sort of thing." So reluctantly, they agreed to do it. And as a result of that, they found I had a brain tumor. So the brain tumor was placed at the back of my head here. So it was in this area. It was malignant, so it wasn't cancerous. So I've got a long scar from like the bottom of my neck to like the middle of my head. And the nerve, one of the main nerves which affects cluster headaches was where the tumor was. So what they were basically saying is that with the size of the tumor it had damaged that nerve within my head, which could have been the result of the cluster headaches. So I had that tumor removed, John Radcliffe Hospital in Oxford. I was in like intensive care for a while because I was in a bad way. And then when I eventually came round, a few months later, the attack still continued through that period. But obviously, I was in hospital at the time, being monitored, so I had like oxygen and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so the brain tumor. So that bit's done. That sector's done with the brain tumor. But the attack still continued. I was in a bad place, like a really bad place. Obviously, being that age at like 13, you don't really understand what's going on. Like I remember the time when I had the scan and they had the results, and I had to wait outside of the room, and the doctor came out and called my mum in and was like, my mum was like, "Wait there, so Nathan." So I sat there. I think I was playing on my Game Boy at the time. So
Mm-hmm.
my mum's gone into the room, came out about 5 minutes later, and she was just crying. And I was like, "What's wrong?" And she was like, don't worry about it, Nathan. Come in." And I remember going into the room, and it was really dark. And if anyone's ever had like a scan or anything, you get to see like up on the board. So like when you go to the to get your eyes tested, not when you see your eyes tested, and there's the glass like
Yeah, people
there's
put
like a
X-rays
glass
on there,
unit.
don't they?
Yeah, but they put X-rays on, so you see that, and all you can see is a picture of my head. And they were describing this is a brain, and then there was like this big black dot, but they never mentioned that. So I was like, "So what's that? What is? I don't understand. What is that black dot?"
Mm-hmm.
And then my mum, the doctor didn't really know what to say. He looked at me, and my mum was like, "You've got a thing called a brain tumor, Nathan, but everything's going to be all right. It can be removed." And I just remember like almost like just sitting there thinking like I, I didn't understand what it was. So I was asking the questions like, what is a brain tumor?" And then that was when the doctor took over and was like, just explaining what a brain tumor was, and they wouldn't know whether it was cancerous until it was removed and whatnot. So long story short, that same day I remember going to John Radcliffe Hospital where they rushed me there in an ambulance just to get there quicker. And I was in there for like about 3 days having loads of different tests done because I was still having the attacks at the same time, hooked up at different machines. I think that they didn't really know what way to go about it, to be honest. So eventually, about a week later, I ended up having it removed. The operation was successful. They said that there were small fragments of it left, but it would have been too dangerous to get those parts out. Less
Mm-hmm.
small fragments of it in, but it wasn't cancerous, which is the best thing. Touch wood. Um, I wouldn't want anyone to catch cancer, even though people do. But yes, it wasn't cancerous. And then, what can I remember from that? I was in hospital for a long period of time. I remember being in there for about 2 months at one stage. Because again, my room, so I was like, like in my own room, had like my own little kitcheny sort of area, my own little bathroom. And obviously that was good because my age, I was very particular with food. So my mum would be able to cook like certain things for me. And I
Hmm.
remember like my uncle was quite close to me. I'm still close to now, my Uncle Junior. Him, because he works near Oxford, he would come on his lunch break like every day to see me. I had an auntie who worked in central London. She would come on like an extended lunch break to see me. So I always had like people coming in to see me within the hospital, which was
Yeah.
good. Thinking back now, you don't really appreciate like how hard it is to go into certain memories. It's almost like if you've been through certain things, like especially it being such a young age, me thinking back to it now, it's actually really scary. Like I don't actually understand how I managed to deal with that at the time. Not understand, like everything was happened so fast and so quickly that it was like, oh, like this is actually quite serious when they explained it to me. The way my mum was reacting, the way my dad was reacting, and then it was only afterwards. So this has just come to me. It's only afterwards that when I was going for my operation, in fact, going down, I wanted my Uncle Junior there. So my mum, my dad, and my Uncle Junior, and my stepdad. So there was four of them in the room when they give like the anaesthetist room before you go down to that.
Yeah.
And they were all just like, "Oh, Nathan, we'll see you soon. You'll be all right." Because this is the first time I would have had an operation. Like you're 13 years old, they're going to operate on your head. You think all sorts of things start to go through your head. You
Yeah.
think, "Am I going to like what's happening? What's this they're going to inject into you?" Like, and then explain that they injected stuff into you that then make you just go to sleep, but you won't feed anything. Blah blah blah. This that. So I remember being in that room and my uncle like saying it'll be all right. My dad said it'll be all right. My mum, my stepdad, and they're like, I just remember them taking me down and then obviously injecting me and then falling asleep and waking back up. And then afterwards, like my mum saying, soon as I woke up, as soon as I went down, my dad basically like ran out of the room because he just couldn't, he couldn't face seeing his son in
Mm.
that situation. Like it's almost easy to not be able to take things in unless you've like experienced it. Like if you speak to a lot of people, they'll know someone who's had like some sort of tumor somewhere in their body. But I think when it's your own child, like I can't imagine how hard that would have been
I think there's
because
definitely a feeling of powerlessness. You know that
yeah,
you can't
exactly
do
that, and
anything.
that's exactly what my dad felt. So my mum basically said he ran out afterwards and just turned his phone off and just stayed away for like 7 hours until like he came back into the hospital and I had only just come back up and then like they were saying where have you been in that and he was like I just couldn't stay like the thought of obviously me
Mm.
something happening to me being so young was hard for him. So yeah, so then with that time went on, attacks continued like normal, like didn't really slow down to be honest from my memory. It was and then I got to fast forward, I must have been about 18, 17, maybe 18.
So just quickly, sorry to cut you off. Just
Yeah.
on that stage of being had the operation at 13 to then
Hmm.
obviously still getting the attacks, and obviously now we've moved forward to you being 18. Were like did you have a normal school life? Were school friends aware of what you were going through? Did you try and keep it a secret?
Nah, well, to a certain degree, I still didn't really understand it myself. So it's hard to, at 13, to articulate a conversation with your friends. And for one, I wasn't allowed, like, back in normal lessons and stuff. Like, I remember having my GCSEs, and I basically missed my GCSEs because I was going through a bad stage. So they had to take my some of my mock results, and then I was allowed because they weren't good. I was allowed to like resit them in like under special conditions. So like at school there was a matron's room, and I took some of my GCSEs in the matron's room with extended time limits and stuff because obviously I'd missed so much of like the
Mm.
schoolwork. Like it's almost like school goes on the back burner if you're struggling to like focus and concentrate, like you're one of the few people that have actually been around me and seen me have one in real life. So
Yeah.
it could you imagine what I deal with it now? Could you imagine being 13 or 14, 15 at that age, having the pressure of your exams because at school they told you, your GCSEs are so important, it's going to set you up for having a job and this, that, but
Mm-hmm.
you've missed half of your school, loads of your school years. Like they wanted me to retake one of the years, and I was like, I'm not doing that. Like, it's what it is. I'm not gonna like be in a year group with kids that I'm a year older than. Like what will be at the end of the day. I'll take the exams and then just deal with it as and when it comes. So yeah, that's the answer to that.
Okay. No, I just think it's amazing. Like you say, this is most people, like you say, have got children, or for some of us, you know, like 13 is, or for me, roughly what 15 years ago. You can still remember that time in your life. You know, I remember
Mm,
the things that we used to worry about during that time was just where you came in social hierarchy. You know, it was just whether or not you were the popular person at school, or the pretty girl liked you, or, you know, that was as far as it sort of your worries went. And
yeah.
I hear it 100% with the pressure with school, because, you know, that's how it was. It was like, you need GCSEs to then go to college and do A levels, or you need your A levels to go to uni. And if you don't do that, then obviously you don't get a job. And so I can completely hear what you're saying, in regards to the pressure that would put you under, plus already feeling at a disadvantage through no fault of your own that you missed that amount of time, um,
Mm,
off school. So, right, so you're at 18 now.
yeah. I'll probably touch. To be fair, I could probably touch on some other bits before that. So, with the condition, I then got referred to a professor in Great Ormond Street Hospital at the time.
Yeah.
So he basically did a series of tests, all this, that, and that he was the one that diagnosed me with cluster headaches at that age. But at the time, I was like, there was me. I think it was me and one other girl who were like his youngest patients of cluster headaches. Like he had never seen anyone this young with cluster headaches. So that was not long after I had the operation. So maybe within 6 months to a year within that period of time.
Hmm.
And I like semi back to normal without the tumor. Yeah, so I got referred to him. So then I was under his care, and at that time, a lot of the treatments, because there was no track record of kids having this sort of thing. So a lot of the treatments, it was almost like, okay, they've got treatments that might treat adults, but how do you adapt that to a child?
Hmm.
So um, uh, say for example, an adult was on a dosage of, I don't know, 1,500 milligrams of a tablet a day. How do you adapt that same tablet into child form, if that makes sense?
Yeah, like a relevant
But
dose.
relevant dose, yeah. So I remember at the time there was like I'm in an RM of different things. So there was a drug called Rapamil, which I was on from the first time of getting diagnosed with the cluster headaches. They put me. I remember Rapamil being one of the first drugs that I had. And thinking back now, like I remember my mum explaining to me like some of the side effects of it and stuff, because I had to go for like regular ECGs because it can affect your heart. But you've got to remember, this is a drug that adults are taking. So if
Hmm.
you're 13, your body's still 13, 14, your body's still growing, you're still developing. So all drugs obviously have some sort of side effect, but sometimes they're not going to know what side effects are until they're too late.
Yeah.
So it's a case of that weighing that balance up. So I remember them keep having ECGs regularly. What else did they have to have regularly? Blood pressure, pulse. My mum had to buy a machine for that, to do that like daily, once a day, once a night, um, just to keep like your heart, to make sure that it didn't change your heart rhythm and things like that. That was one of the side effects. So I was on that for a long period of time. Um, and I think, thinking off the top of my head, I think it did work for a period of time to get them under control. So it was more of a case of, okay, you were having like 2 or 3 attacks a day. This is like short on the attacks, and they were still just as intense, but shorter them, and then you're not having as many. So instead of having 3, I might have had 1, but instead of them all 3 being an hour and a half each, they were like 35 minutes to 40 minutes. So it had them under control for a period of time. And once they eventually found the right dosage, being on that for a period of time, and then if I skip forward now until like 17, 18, it was almost like one day I went for one of my ECGs, and I remember the cardiologist lady saying, you'll get your results this afternoon. And normally they don't give them to you like that. Someone's going to call you. So they called and said, I think they had a phone conversation with my consultant, and the tablets, the verapamil, had done something to my heart rhythm, which they said to me basically, you're going to have to stop taking them because of what the effects that it can have. So that's over a period of, say, from 13 up until maybe 17, where you've taken a drug which they don't know what the repercussions are, and it's almost like my body's like had an adverse effect to it now. So they panicked a little bit with that, because I had to go on like these blood thinning tablets. I remember, can't remember what they were called, and I was on them for a period of time once I came off the verapamil. So that was the verapamil, knocked on the head from that. But then I went for a period of where even I wasn't taking the verapamil, I was just getting I was still just getting one attack rather than going back to the 3. So it's like the verapamil had built up in my system, and I was still just getting the 1 attack. But then after a period of time, the attack sort of almost overnight subsided. Didn't have any for a period of time. I must have been between, say, maybe 18, and when I was about 18 and a half until 22, 23.
It's nearly 4 years worth of
Yeah, so
just
like maybe
being attack free.
3 or 4 years with attack free, and it was almost like, well, how's that happen? Still under my same consultant, he was like, that can happen. He was like, obviously with you being one of the youngest ones, this has happened with a couple of other people, but the chances are that it can come back. But because I think cluster headaches have had like a history of affecting the older, over 25s sort of thing, it can come back. So just be aware. But they still kept the monitor of me and whatnot. So for a period of time, I did have like not a bad time where I got back into playing football again and bits and bobs and this, that, which was good, because I almost like, you've missed so many years of your teenage life that now you could sort of like start doing the things with any sort of worry or panic, if that makes sense. But I think always subconsciously, I was always like enjoy it while you can, because they've already told you that it can come back. So just do what you can when you can, and just enjoy the good times while you can.
And did you struggle for a while when they said obviously it could come back? Were you sort of every day, like, what I'm trying to understand with, like, before you knew you were having 1 attack a day, was it always the same time every day, or could it be any random time?
It was always in the evening, so it was always like late in the evening. So anytime from like 9 p.m. up until like 4 a.m. I could have it between any of those time periods. So it was a case of, when I was getting them, I was always on edge anyway. As soon as it got to the evening, I was always on edge, because if something's happened repetitively for like 365 days, like between the same time scales, you're always going to be on edge, because you know that it's coming, but it's just a case of when's it coming, sort of thing. So that break of not having them was a great release. Like I said, I managed to start playing football again, local teams like Flackle Heath and whatnot. And just enjoying like my teenage years. Obviously, find alcohol, girls, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I was going to say the finer things in life, but I'm not quite sure if that's the right thing to say. But yeah, you enjoy adulthood, shall we say? I guess it's the first time, and I guess that's as well. It's the first time that you've really been able to enjoy life with your friends without any form of feeling that you're missing out, or that you're being held back. I don't really want to use the term like regular, but in terms of a regular life, shall we say, at least, without being under any sort of constraints, because that must be really hard if when you were going through this, through your whole childhood, then like you say, you're always on edge. If someone invites you to even something as simple as a sleepover, like at someone's house, you couldn't really go because, you wouldn't want to have one of these attacks necessarily in front of people or not within sort of the comforts of your own home. I think you could easily, like say, if people didn't know you outside of school or outside of football, they might not have even known that, you turn up for school the next day and they think, oh, he's miserable. But little do they know you've been up half the night having one of these attacks and you haven't had any sleep.
Yeah,
And I
pretty
think that
much.
just, shows you that. And again, it's your choice on whether you shared that or not. And I think to a certain extent, it's hard to talk about stuff that you think, I could tell you about this, but you're not going to be able to help me because not even doctors or medical professionals have, in essence, got a cure. So what necessarily are you going to offer me in terms of advice or help that can really help me? What's almost the point of talking about it, if that makes sense?
Yeah, yeah, it makes perfect sense.
But then
Perfect sense.
there's probably times where you might have been down or suffered some sorts of mental health, but people will be like dismissive of it because they know you as just the character that you're trying to be. They don't know you're trying to put a brave face on things. They just see it as, well, I mean, I saw you at football earlier and you were fine. I saw you out
Yeah,
at the cinema the other
but so,
day. It's
where you've just said that though, touching on that, like where you say like the talking about it and stuff, I remember having to have a counsellor. Like I had a counsellor all through that whole time. I had a counsellor of like from 13 upwards because it was just something that I think it was through my school. To be honest, it was through my school because obviously I was sometimes I would have the odd attack at school, so it was like our school matron almost became like a second mum to me. Sounds weird because obviously she's not my mum, but I spent so much time in her like work area
yeah,
where I don't feel good. Where I've had to leave a lesson because I had oxygen at the time as well. So my oxygen was stored in her like her room, matron's room. So it was almost like I had my own little locker, my own little chair, my own little bed there in the
yeah.
corner. Again, it was meant to say it laugh now, but at the time, like
But that's
that
good
helped me a
though.
lot.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah,
good that
it
school
was
actually
good.
supported you like that.
Yeah, I think it helps though when you're good at sport.
Yeah,
When you're
yeah,
good at sport and you're like all the teachers love you and that, and then all of a sudden you've disappeared for a long period of time, and even teachers can't get their head around like, wow, this kid's like he's actually really ill, but he
mm,
still like does certain things. Like he'll still like even if I recover from an attack, and it was say I remember recovering from an attack. It was on a sports day, recovering from an attack, and I had one of my races soon. And they was like, "No, you can't do it." I said, "I want to race. I still want to race. Like, I didn't want to miss out on stuff. Like you touched on it earlier. Even at that age, especially, you don't want to miss out on stuff because
mm,
all your friends are doing it. Like, you still want to almost like I was very competitive, so I still want to. I'm still competitive now, but you still want to like compete and not let certain things holding you back. And at that age, I was still always had a lot of energy anyway. A lot of the time when you're younger, it's easier for you to recover from things. As I've got older, it's harder to recover. It's harder to keep yourself driving and pushing yourself. But when you're younger, you just get like that second wind. You get that adrenaline. You've got that competitive edge of the other kids around you and stuff. So that definitely did help, to be honest.
yeah. No, exactly. And I think that is a great point that you were able to, if people, you're still a normal kid. You just were living in unnormal circumstances through
Mm.
something out of your control. And I think that's the biggest thing is that we'll touch on the fact that you've been living with this, and when it came to people's knowledge, shall we say, or on a bigger scale, you were in your were you 30 when that video came out?
No, I was younger than that. 20, I think I was 29. Come on, nearly 4 years. 4 years, maybe 5 years, 4 years.
So
What a bit, yeah.
27, 28?
Yeah, 28. No,
Right.
20, must have been about 29.
Okay. So 29, and but then people
Yeah,
think,
28, 29.
as an adult, okay, that must be really bad, going through it as an adult. But there's a stigma attached to being an adult that you can get on with things. We're talking about for the last half an hour, not being sort of demoralizing, but a child. like, you know, starting off as a child, teenager, all through your teenage life, dealing with this,
Hmm.
you know, which is, I think if you really stop and think about it, again, people will be oblivious. You don't realize necessarily, you know, we look back at our teenage years and normally it's just, you know, funny memories and stuff, like you say, start to talk about girls and this. You don't think that there's not many people, you know, that went through this sort of turmoil or suffering. Um, so, I mean, you fast forwarded to, it's been dormant. You haven't
Yeah.
had an attack for 3 or 4 years. Are you now
Hmm.
starting to think, okay, like this is behind me now? I'm, you know, did you almost forget about it in a certain
A little
extent?
bit. Yeah, of course you do, because you've gone for a period of like a recluse, or like where you just been able to do like normal things. But I think always subconsciously you're always going to have something in the back of your head, even though you're not thinking about it daily, in the back of your head. Because I remember when it came back, it's at my mum's, and I was like, don't feel good. Trying to think. I think I just come. I think I was playing for Flackwell Heath again at the time, still, or Bracknell maybe, and I remember having training and coming back and saying, I don't feel good. I really don't feel good. Like pain, like in my head. She was like, oh, maybe you haven't eaten, blah, 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 like usual parents things.
Yeah.
Obviously, to her, I haven't had one for however many years. So it's almost like she's not going to, like, that's not going to be the first thing that you jump to as such.
Hmm.
But apart from like these, obviously, sounds stupid to say I wasn't a sick kid. But like, when I say sick, I mean like flu, colds, that sort of thing. I never really, even to this day, chicken pox. It went through the school. I never caught chicken pox. Never had it.
Yeah.
33 now. Like, so things like that, I've always like have not really affected me. So I remember, yeah, coming back from training, I said I didn't feel good, and then just that one night, bang, out of the blue, I must have been about 23, possibly 20, yeah, 20, 22, 20, 20 yeah, 22, 23, and bang, came out of the middle of nowhere, and they were back. Had an attack that night. It was like 3 hours long, like back with a vengeance. And I remember just sitting in my mum's house on the floor in the dark. My mum next to me, my stepdad next to me, and my mum just holding me and saying that'll be all right. And I would just couldn't stop crying, because it's almost like,
Yeah, things coming
fuck,
back.
like what the fuck? Like I thought this was gone, sort of thing. So, and then since then it's just since then I haven't had a break since. So the thing with cluster headaches is you have um, two different types, or two different like ratings, as you say. So you have one person that is classed as episodic, where they can have like 2 weeks worth of attacks, an attack every day for 2 weeks, and then it will disappear for 6 months. Or the other version, I can't remember what we called the other version now. It's gone off the top of my head now. I'm trying to think about it, but it will come to me in a minute. Or the other end of the scale, where you have an attack, at least one attack every day, or one attack every day, or every other day, continuously. So that's the stage that I'm at now, where I haven't had any breaks in that.
So you've literally dealt with the sort of every day you've had an attack of some sort. Is it, are they always
So
the same, or
I've never been longer than 2 weeks without it.
and are they
Never.
always the same type of, like the same length, near enough in the same window of time?
So the way that I've come over the years to rate them is like, I have like a scale. So like my pain tolerance is fairly high now, because like anyone that is interested and wants to go and look at cluster headaches now, it's called the suicide headache. So there's women that have got it that have said that it's worse than childbirth without any sort of medication. So I don't know what childbirth's like, but I've seen my partner have our child, and she was in enormous pain. So
Yeah.
like, in the sense of when I saw my child being born, I could almost relate to that pain without sounding
Yeah,
weird,
no, I hear
like,
that. Yeah, yeah.
because I've got high pain tolerance. So in the sense of that, I always rate them. So I like, if I had it on a scale of 1 to 5, I've got I constantly, no matter what day it is, I live with a dull headache. So right now I'm speaking to you, I have a constant pain in my head all the time. That never goes, ever. But the level of that constant pain varies. So like now where I'm talking to you, it might be a 1.5 out of 5, right? This constant pain. If that constant pain is higher than a 3, like normally, I know that I'm going to start to get to a stage where I'm going to go for a bad period of attacks. So it's almost like if I knew that, like, for the last week, I'm thinking, fucking hell, this dull ache has been at like a good 4, and it's stopping me from doing certain things. I'm actually having to think about, do I go and do that now? Do I not? Like, if I know that it's at that period, I almost let that, well, not let that, I know that I can't almost commit to certain things. Like, to say, if we were going on a holiday tomorrow, and at the minute, for the last week and a half, I've been at a 4, you'd be like, if it was a partying holiday, but I don't think I'm going to be able to go, because it's a hot, like, this theory has never failed me as such. Even saying that, Vegas.
Yeah.
Build up to Vegas. Well, I
Yeah, I
nearly
do
didn't go.
actually. No, I know, I remember. I
I nearly.
actually forgot about that. Yeah, because again, we were away for 7 days, and touch wood, like, well, thankfully now it's past tense. That 7 days you were fine. But I remember now, actually mentioned it, yeah, the build up to it, like literally a week before, I think, if that, you were like, I'm not sure if I'm gonna go, and I was a bit like, what? Like, and to be honest, even as a friend, like, I've known your circumstances, I've known you for a long time, and I remember thinking, like, surely you're going to be all right. Like, and I'm going to ask a question here, because I think some people might be listening and thinking it, and so I'm going to ask almost the naive question on behalf of everyone. This constant dull headache, I take it Nurofen, paracetamol, etc., that most people would take for a headache, is just doesn't work on you, or does that have any effect at all?
It can have an effect. If I take, well, I don't take, to be fair, I don't take paracetamol. I tend to take codeine if I take anything. So it's just sounds weird, but if I take codeine, it's almost like a normal person taking paracetamol. So codeine is my. If you go to my drawer downstairs, I've got codeine that would probably last me 3 months, or
Now,
last the average person 3 months if they're taking it every day. I take 2 of those.
now
If I get
there's
to
a lot
if I
of
get to a stage where I don't feel great.
there's a lot of research, I guess it's fair to say, about addiction around pain
Mhm.
medication, addiction to things like codeine. Um, have you ever felt yourself that will battle like an addiction on sort of pain subscription drugs, or not at all?
Nah, never. You know what it is? For me, I'm quite a strong-willed, strong-minded person. So in the sense of addictive, I believe in myself. There's nothing that I can get addictive to or get addicted to, because whether that be with the things that I've experienced, or whether I be that the way that I've seen certain drugs affect other people that I know or whatnot, but I've never had an addictive personality. So in the sense of, like, codeine, I know that it's downstairs, but if I need it, I'll take it. If I don't need it, I'm not going to take it. It's almost like if someone said to me, "You've got you've got the flu," for example, you can take this tablet. I'll be like, nah, I'll sweat it out. I'll wait. I'll sweat it out for a few days, put a load of Vicks over my chest, wrap myself up, and then just lie down and try and sweat it out. I'd rather do that way than take tablets. I've never really been one for taking tablets just for the sake of taking them. But then again, not everyone's got that capability to be able to do that as such. So in that sense, I am thankful that I am like that, and I don't have that addictive personality, because that is another thing that can be a dangerous slope. Like, over the years, that some of the drugs that they've given me, or some of the drugs I've had, when I actually look at before with this, when you said about doing this, when I looked at like some of my notes and some of my tablets that I've taken, if I was to print them off, they would cover probably 2 A4 sheets, front and back, of
Mm.
different tablets of different things I've taken. Like, and yes, some things have worked, some things haven't. Some things have worked, and then they've given me adverse side effects, so I've had to stop taking them. Whether it be from rashes on my skin, to patches of my hair falling out, to weight gain, to heart problems, to bowel problems. Like, that I think this is one of the biggest things though for me. A lot of people will look at someone, whether it be because of the way that they look or the way that they carry themselves, and make a huge assumption
Yeah.
without actually knowing the ins and outs of what's what. Just because I've always been one, you can't compare one person to another person. Everyone's an individual. Everyone reacts to different things in different ways. Everyone does things what they feel are best for them. So, in the sense of, I lost my train of thought now. In the sense of your other people's perspectives on what they may think of you, you just can't let that bother you.
I think
Because
people choose.
I see so many people, especially in this day and age, on like in social media and whatnot. People almost want to compete with other people when really they should just be competing with themselves. Be better than you was yesterday. Like, it's an achievement getting up every day. For me, it's an achievement getting up every day and forcing myself to go and do to what I want to do. Or people will look at, like, you'll know, my new thing is bike riding.
Yeah, I have
Like,
seen you covering some miles on that thing, ain't you?
like that's my new thing. But people think, fuck me, he's gone and done, like, look at my Strava, he's done 40 miles today.
Mm.
Like, how's he done that? Yeah, little be known, I've had 2.5 hours sleep before that, like through the night. I might have been up on my oxygen for 45 minutes, had a bit of an attack, managed to get back to sleep, but I've got back to sleep at 5 o'clock. I've got a little girl who's 15 months years old. She wakes up, she's in the bed. Like, then you're not getting back to sleep. So when she does fall back asleep, I think, right, exercise is one of the things that helps me massively, which is why it's easy for people to look at me and think, oh, he's a fitness freak. Like, he's turned vegan. He loves exercise. He's just doing it for no. You don't know the story. Like, the reason I do those things is because they're the things that help me. So if I can do something that helps myself, why wouldn't I do it?
Mm.
Like, it's only if you've been through a certain struggle that you turn to things that help you then turn to gold. They're priceless. So if I've got exercise which is free and that is going to help me, whether it seems extreme to one person or not, whatever, doesn't really matter what anyone else thinks. If it's going to help me, that, like, for my health, then I'm going to do it, sort of thing. Like, you've got to find those extra gears, those extra cogs to be able to push yourself and to be able to motivate yourself. Because ultimately, what you want for yourself, you're the only one that can control that. So if someone says to me, right, Nathan, the ultimate ultimatum, like, I'm not rich, I'm not poor, I'm middle of the road. But someone said to me, right, here, there's £10 million. You can have that, or you can have the cure and never ever have to have one of these attacks again in any way, shape, or form. A lot of people be like, "Oh, sure, you take 10 mil." No, I wouldn't,
Mm.
because this is something that has controlled, like, not controlled me, because I don't let it control me to a certain extent, but it's had too much of an impact on my life and has stopped me from doing so many things, like, where money could never do.
Mm.
Like, you're only as good as your health. So you can have 10 million, but if someone says to you, you've got a week to live, what good is 10 mil?
Yeah.
Whereas if you don't have that pain, but then I'm going to live until I'm from 33 to 83, pain free. What can happen in that time period from 33 to 83? You've then got an open window. You're completely free, knowing that you're not going to have any other health problem. Touch wood.
It's 50
So
years, isn't
I
it?
think, yeah, it's just a year. So, like, a lot of people look to money. Like, to me, money's almost, yeah, you need it to survive, but it's not really that important, because for my health problem, there's no amount of money at the minute that can stop what I've got. So yeah, so while that is the case, I have to do the things that I can do to give myself the best quality of life, or to give myself the best yeah, quality of life. That's the perfect word. The best quality of life that I can. So when it comes to the exercise sort of thing and changing my diet, they're two things that I've done and I do, and I will forever stick to them because they help me better than any tablet can or better than any medication can. Tried too many medications where it's caused me problems. Some of them like mental health drugs where I've almost felt like I was going crazy, like absolutely like mental. Waking up and tasting like copper in the back of your mouth, and like feeling like walking down the street and like people are staring at you, like properly just not yourself. I've been in that situation. I don't ever want to be there again. So if I can avoid taking any of those sorts of drugs, where it's almost like you're a guinea pig, like it's almost like some of these drugs suppress like all normality. So you'd be walking around like a zombie, but you're not of any use to anyone. Like there was one drug that I was on. Actually, I won't. There's one thing that I took after speaking to like a few people abroad who have got my condition. They said to try this drug, which is mushrooms, magic mushrooms. It's called a Liberty Cap. Um, and I was humming and ahhing about it, to be honest, when they were saying like try these Liberty Caps, like if you can get some, you grind them up, you put them into like either warm water with lemon and honey and drink it, or you can put it on a gram of it on some yogurt, put it in your mouth and take it that way. Mate, I took that stuff for maybe every 3 to 4 days for about 3 months, just when I was in a bad place. But we're going to touch on that later. I'll go on to that bit later on.
Yeah. And I think this is something that I want people to really take stock of and actually think. Some people might have been sat here listening to this going, God, I can't imagine what that would have been like. The comparison that I sort of make to this is you've lived with something for basically half of your life that there is no cure for. We now currently at the moment as a society are dealing with COVID, which there has no cure for as such yet, right? And people are already, beside themselves with the restrictions it's had on their life and where they can't go and do certain things, whether they've been furloughed, whether they can't go and see their friends in groups and everything else like that. But someone like yourself, you've been dealing with something that has had no treatment for half your life. So, do you think this gives people a better insight into people's lives like yourself?
How do you mean?
So, regards to like, there is no cure at the moment for COVID. So, but
Mhm.
people are beside themselves because they're like, well, there needs to be a vaccine, and what if there's no cure? The fear of almost like death if they catch it, if they're in the right demographic, etc. Where you've been dealing with something that still to this day, am I right in saying has no cure?
Mhm.
So for half your life, you've been dealing with something that is, you know, got no cure, yet you've managed to keep moving through life. You're not taking it as a negative that there's no cure. Instead, you've taken the positives and gone, okay, what can I actually do here? Can I do exercise? Can I change my diet? You've taken the initiative. You haven't changed your life because someone, whether that be a doctor or someone else, has said to you, right, try exercising, try being a vegan. That you've taken the initiative to try and find something that potentially is going to support you through the rest of your life. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
You know, and I know that you're very passionate about veganism. Um, and I think sometimes it may, I don't think everyone's going to become a vegan. However, there's clearly benefits, but then this veganism itself has helped you. So that's why you are
Yeah.
going to be an advocate of it, because you can physically say, this is one of the things that has helped me keep, I will say, a regular life.
Yeah. You know what it is though? People are too quick to dismiss things. So let's put it this way, right? Say you get given two options for something. You've got an illness, you get two options, right? neither of those options seem appealing to you, but they're the only two options that someone's given you, would
Mhm.
you then look for another option or another possibility, or would you just bite the bullet and just take one of the options that they've given you? That's what it comes down to. Like, you've got to be more open-minded to try things. People are too quick to dismiss things without actually trying it. And if the thing that you're too scared to try, or say that you can't try, you might try it and that might make a big change to you. And you might think, then eventually you think, why didn't I do that sooner? But if it doesn't work out, you haven't lost anything. You've tried something that wasn't originally on the table. But if you don't try it, you're almost not helping yourself. You
Mm.
can't then hold someone else accountable for the outcome which you don't like, based on you not wanting to try something else because they haven't recommended it. Like, information is everywhere. There's information everywhere, but people don't want to look at the information. People just want to look at what they're being told, what they think is right, without any sort of background behind it. Like, I didn't just jump into being like plant-based, being veganism. I didn't just jump into it. I didn't wake up one morning and be like, you know what, I'm going to be vegan tomorrow. That'll help. You speak to people that have been in a similar situation, or you speak to people who have enough knowledge on that topic to then be able to give you enough information to be able to make a judgment call and think, well, you know what, this is worth trying. Like I say, worst thing that happens, it doesn't work. At least you've tried something, and then you reevaluate and you go on to the next thing. That's the same with like this COVID thing. Like, you can't, like, it's almost people are scared of something before it's actually happened. If that makes sense.
Hmm.
You can
But
only
you were
deal with
also brave
something.
enough to reach out, weren't you? Like, you reached out
Yeah,
to help for people, but you had to take that first step to reach out, which is obviously what we're trying to get across here, is that if you didn't have the bravery or the initiative to reach out to someone who you thought could help you, you probably would have continued just to suffer in silence, or carrying on with the two options that you told that potentially you would have been given.
but to be fair, the whole vegan thing, it has helped with my head. But the other reason that I did it, because I had another health problem, which I'm not really going to go into. But I had another health problem with my like stomach, and that the vegan thing just made that disappear.
Mm.
After the hospital giving me two options of have an operation or take medication, that's why I sought help from someone else and a few other people, and that, like, the whole stomach problem issue disappeared. Not within 9 months. So it's gone from either have a medication or have an operation. They were the two options that I was given, and I didn't fancy any of them, having had operations in the past and having been on medication in the past. And I seeked elsewhere, and I came up with the result where I didn't have to do either of them, and the stomach problem's gone. So, like you say, it's just about trying other possibilities, not necessarily just listening to what you've been told. Like, ask questions. It's what you have to do. You have to ask questions. You have to seek extra knowledge with people who have actually experienced it. Although doctors, don't get me wrong, doctors are very good because to they've been trained to a level where technically there should be a medicine or some sort of operation that can help you for most things. But you've got to remember, someone wrote that book in the first place. There's not always going to be every answer in that same book that they've read. So just because they've read 95% of the book, that other 5% they've read, just because they've read 100% of one book, doesn't mean all the answers are in that one book. There's going to be other answers elsewhere, but it's just a case of whether you're willing to look for them or whether you're going to take someone else's word for it.
No, definitely. And I think, so if we to touch on treatments actually, and probably treatments maybe outside the scope of what most people would imagine would be the road you would go down. So you've been dealing with cluster headaches for a large period of your life. I imagine that, different hospitals, different consultants, but all within the NHS. Is that
Mm-hmm.
is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I know that you then you followed sort of the journey to America, where there was someone in America who was it a treatment for cluster headaches, or what was the background for the American person?
Pain management.
Right. Okay. So did you find him through recommendation, or how did you know this person in America existed?
So when I was going through when I was going through like my really bad time, like say when I was like 28, 29, it was going through a period of where it's probably the worst one the whole of my life, to be honest. Yeah, joint worst. So I was having like not maybe between 3 and 6 attacks a day, to the point where I couldn't work, couldn't drive, couldn't leave my house, couldn't be left unattended. Was going through oxygen like no tomorrow. Like I was in a bad place. That was from like a late August until like the end of that year, the start of that January, middle of the next January. Like it was in a bad place. Imagine having like 6, 7 attacks a day, constant back to back. So you would have one, it was 45 minutes. You'd maybe recover for an hour. You're drained as it is. You have another one. Just keep battering you. But that was so unusual for me because they were coming at all times of the day. They were coming in the daytime. They were coming in the nighttime. They were coming in the evening. Like it was just no let up, to the point where the various medications and being weak, like after every attack, I was putting weight on with the medication, also eating, not being able to train, which was like one of my main releases. It was horrible place. So then I remember it clearly, to be fair, one early hours of the morning, my missus was going to work early doors before my daughter was here. And I remember having an attack. But when my missus was going to work, one of her sisters was coming round just to sit with me for a little while my missus was going to be away. So I've finished my attack. My attack's finished, but I'm still in like crazy pain and kind of delirious, comes to think of it now. And I remember just waking up in hospital. I woke up in hospital. I'm thinking like delirious, like where am I? Whatnot. Long story short, I'd downed a bottle of liquid morphine. So I downed a bottle of liquid morphine and woke up in the hospital. They had to get it out of my stomach. Luckily, to be fair, I was alive, but I didn't do it as a thing of wanting to hurt myself or like kill myself. It was more of like, I feel like this pain is so much. I just feel like I just remember thinking, I just want to sleep. And it was there on the side and I just downed it. Like, biggest wake up call ever, waking up in that hospital. Like, and then from that moment, obviously my parents lived down south. They came up and I'd already been speaking to like various people in America because we've been and ahhing about going to see this bloke. Because obviously it's difficult when you're going to another country to potentially have treatment, which isn't available in the UK for various health and safety reasons. It's weighing it up because obviously if any insurance that you have is not going to be valid. If anything goes wrong, your insurance doesn't count because you've technically left the UK to go to America to have a treatment which isn't available in the UK for a reason.
Yeah.
So it was weighing that up, and my dad. I just remember mum and dad saying like, "You're gonna have to go. You're gonna have to try it. Like you've been umming and ahhing. You can't go on like this. Like your life is literally stopped, all because of like these attacks." And I knew that deep down, to be honest. Like I knew, but I think I just needed like not the blessing, but I needed like the voice of one of them to actually say it as such, rather than just saying, oh, I'm going to go. Because normally, if I want to make a decision, you know me, I'll just make it and I'll be like, yeah, I'm good, I'm doing it. But I almost needed like that little bit of yeah, just go and do it. So I made this appointment with this guy, had like various Skype calls, various questions, blah, 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 this, that. And because there had been quite a few people that had recommended him to me, because when my video went viral, so many people contact me from all over the place, America, Australia, South Africa, like different parts of the UK saying, "Oh my God, your video, like I suffer with it as well." Like so many people, to the point where like my inbox was like full on Facebook because it was just like constantly messages and various people.
How
So
did that
yeah,
make you
some of the
feel
people.
that people were reaching out from all over the world? Was it what you wanted, or was it just you wanted someone to potentially come with the
When I first
cure?
when I first put that video out, I think I had kept it quiet for so long, like it. I almost like didn't even mean to put it out, if that makes sense. Like it's almost like I remember being on a medication at the time, and I wasn't really myself, and I was doing a lot of deep thinking. Like when you're in a place like that and you feel that dark, a lot of things go through your head, like what is life going to be like in 5 years? What is life going to be like in 10 years? Like, I want kids. I can't have a kid like this. Like so many different things, like where you've missed like nights out with friends. You've missed friends' weddings because you're now at an age where you're getting to 30 years old, late 20s, 30 years old, and a lot of your friends are having kids, they're getting married, you're getting invited to different things. And I'm having to miss out on those things yet again, like my teen years, miss out on certain things because of this sort of like condition. Like what do you do? Do you bite the bullet and just think, you know what, like something needs to be done? So subconsciously I think that was the reason why I put the video out. When I put it out, it some it was just on my page, and my page was private. And then like a few of my family members, like my mum, said, "Oh, I didn't believe it. Like, so glad that you've done that. You put it out because people need to see," and blah 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 blah, this that. And I had numerous people contact me. It did, and to be honest, I can't really remember how it made me feel. Like it was like, in a way, it was good for me because I knew that, well, a lot of people reached out to me, and I had like other things that I hadn't considered. Like if I hadn't have done it then, I wouldn't have found the guy in America. I wouldn't have known about him. America's far. It's not
Mm.
like it's 5 minutes down the road, so I wouldn't have. But on the other side, it's like you want to help people and give people advice, but you've also got to then remember you're going through a bad time yourself. Like
Mhm.
you, you, you want to help people. You don't want to be seen as rude, but you have to prioritize yourself. Like, like you can't message every single person back because, for one, you don't know their background, you don't know the history, you don't know what they have had, you don't know what they haven't had. Like, so yeah, you try to help as many people as you can, give people as much hope and like information as you can, but ultimately you're not in a good place yourself. So are you really in the correct space or state of mind to be helping other people? Hindsight, probably not. In fact, I wasn't. Drinking a bottle of morphine says that, like, without even actually realizing that you've done it. Like, there are people that have purposely gone to try to end their lives or whatnot, but that wasn't never my intention. Mine was just to, so tired, I'm in so much pain, I need a break, like I need a release. And that was the big wake up call. So that was how I found a guy in America. So that journey in itself was just like, was I didn't tell my consultant I was going. I was like, because I know what, if you're going to see someone in America, which is, the treatment is banned over here, your consultant can't then say to you, like, there's no positive answer he can give me or any doctor can give me. So I basically got a letter to say, from my doctor, to say that I was safe to fly, saying I just said, but got one to basically say that I was going to go out there just to visit some family and stuff, just to get away from stuff, so that I was safe to fly. So I got that, and then to go. It was in Oklahoma, so I went from Newcastle to Amsterdam, flying Amsterdam to Atlanta, Atlanta to Oklahoma, then a car drive with my missus. And that journey was probably one of that. No, not probably. That was the worst journey I've ever done. Like in many different ways, for many different reasons. So starting from the beginning, obviously I'm still having, at this stage, I'm still having 5 to 6 attacks a day. Being in a confined cabin of a plane,
Mm.
sure, air pressure, different things like that, like make a difference. So I can remember being okay on the flight from Newcastle to Amsterdam. Then we got on another plane to go from Amsterdam to Atlanta. And that plane journey was awful. Luckily, the plane wasn't that busy, and the cabin crew had already been given my letter. Like, I'd already had like not a briefing. Well, in their briefing, they had been made aware of me, what my condition is and whatnot. So the potential, they have oxygen on the plane just in case I needed it. So they were more than helpful. But I remember having like 4 attacks on the plane, like, and obviously you don't want to be fucking screaming in pain, like on a plane when there's other people around. So I was near the back of the plane, and to be fair, they'd moved a lot of the people further away, so that when I did have my attacks, I was back near the oxygen. If I needed anything, water or like flannels with ice in, just to cool my temperature down, because my body temperature is one of the main things. Well, normally when I get these attacks, if it's a really bad one, my body temperature just like goes through the roof. Like, anyone that knows me like really well, like, my body temperature, I'm always hot. If I'm in my house, I'm always hot. I'm never cold. So my body temperature is constantly, it is always fairly high, my internal temperature. So yeah, so I remember having like 4 attacks on the plane, being like an awful journey, getting off and thinking, Jesus Christ, like that flight was probably one of the worst flights I've ever done, if not the worst flight I've ever done. Like, it's horrible. But I've still got another leg from Atlanta to Oklahoma. So I've then gone to go through customs, to go through Atlanta airport to get our next connecting one. So I've gone through Atlanta airport, customs bit, check. What was your purpose, your pleasure? I said, I'm going to Oklahoma to have some medical treatment. Well, fuck me, that was the wrong thing to say. But hindsight, like I was telling you about it before, like hindsight, like, maybe I should have lied and said I was going on a holiday. But why would you? I've got no reason to lie. I know what I'm going there for. Like, so I said I'm going for medical. So that was it. Like, they told me to wait there. 2 security guys came, took me into a room, asked me loads of questions. It was like an interrogating room. I was in there for about an hour and a half. Bear in mind, I wasn't traveling alone. My missus had already gone through. She didn't know where I was. Like, I made to take my phone out, put it on the side, and just asking me loads and loads of questions, like, what's the treatment, this, that, who you going to see, what's the doctor's name, what's the surgery's name, like, and I had all my paperwork. Like, there was no reason for them not to believe me, sort of thing. But hindsight, with all this like stuff that's going on now with like the marches and stuff, like, everyone in that room who was being like questioned was all like Mexicans. I remember seeing loads of guys with like dreadlocks, like long locks, black guys. Like, there was minimal white people, and they were just all being questioned. Like, it's like, what? Why do you think that I'm lying? Like, to the point where they wanted to send me back. They weren't going to let me in. They didn't believe my story. And I was like, please let me get my phone, because the secretary of the doctor that I was going to see, basically given me her number, because I was the first person to go that was going to, they were going to be seeing from the UK. So she had given me her mobile number. So text me when you land, make sure everything's safe, everything's fine, blah, blah, blah. So I said, please, I've got the secretary's number. Please call her. She can confirm, blah, 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 this, that. So they gave them the number, and then the guy went off for about 20 minutes. Came back, got some of my paperwork, went back again for like another 20 minutes, and then said, Mr. Jack, thank you for your time. Just want to ask, who are you traveling with? I said, I told you, I'm traveling with my missus. She's like, she's gone through already. It's like, oh, you're with, because they thought, they obviously weren't listening, because they thought that I was on my own. So they thought I was, don't know what they thought, whether they thought I was lying to go and do something or what, who knows. But anyway, so I was like, yeah, I'm with my missus. Like, I'm not traveling alone. I've told you I've got a neurological condition, blah, 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 this, that. Even to the point where I could feel myself, like my body temperature and that, like my dull headache just getting stronger and stronger, because stress is one of the things that can make one of my attacks worse. So it's like, I could just feel myself. I was just thinking to myself, please, 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 don't happen now. Don't happen now. All times happen. Don't happen now. But hindsight, maybe it would have been better if I had have had one there, because then they would have had to have actually listened or believed what I said. So the guys come back, said, Mr. Jack, you're free to go, blah, 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 blah. Sorry for the confusion, blah, 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 this, that, stabbed my thing, gone through. So now in Atlanta airport, my missus is waiting there, like crying, like, oh my God, what's happened? I was like, been in there for 2 hours. They've literally made me feel like I'm a criminal, like I've done something wrong, when all I'm doing is going to America to get some treatment that I can't get in the UK to help myself, that sort of thing. And then I just remember there was another layover. I remember having an attack in Atlanta airport, in a disabled toilet, funnily enough, and then getting on a plane to go to Atlanta. Another plane. When I got to Atlanta, it was then night time. So I got to Oklahoma, so it was then night time where my missus was going to drive the car, because we had a hire car, because it was, if you know, America's a massive place. Like, just because you're in an Oklahoma airport, and the place that we need to get to was like 2.5, 3 hours away. So we'd hired this big SUV thing just in case I had an attack. So my missus was driving there, had a couple of attacks on the way there, stopped off a couple of times, and then finally got to this place in Oklahoma. Got to the hotel late at night, and I remember walking into this hotel thinking, thank fuck we're here. But looking, you see, like when you see them films, them movies, and it's like a motel in the middle of nowhere, because we were driving for ages, and it was just like pitch black, like a service stop where people get gas, and like a little tuck shops along the way, but it was like you're driving through the middle of nowhere. So we get to this place in the distance, and it's obviously where the hotel is and that, and then we're there. So I walked into the hotel, and I can remember just looking around, and there's people sat in the bar still, and people just turning around to look. Obviously a black guy with a white girl, like just staring. And I thought, oh, I don't like the look of this. But it was like one of those motels where it's got like 2 landings, one at the top and one at the bottom, and there was all these big monster trucks out the front. So anyway, so we're inside. So I said, I've got a reservation for Nathan Jack. Woman's on the computer. Sorry, sir, we don't have the reservation for Nathan Jack. And I'm like, you definitely do. I get my emails up. Do you have Wi-Fi? Because my phone wouldn't work, because obviously I didn't have my data roaming on. So went onto the Wi-Fi to get onto my emails. I said, this is it. And then she was back on her computer. She said, oh, sorry, I found it. Jack Nathan, your room's blah, 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 blah. So she's given us the key, going back out of the building, walked around this motel like fucking snakes and ladders. I got into the room. I said, lock that fucking door.
Yeah.
I was shook, so scared, because you're in the fucking middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like 2 English people, a black guy, a white girl, like fucking in a motel in the middle of Oklahoma, like
Middle of nowhere, like the
yeah,
films you
middle of
actually
nowhere.
see, like the horror films in America. I'm picturing that sort of like horror motel, and
Mate,
I've been in them myself. I'm the scariest thing in the world.
It was mental, and then it was like the yeah. So we're in this motel, and I was like, just lock that door. I remember putting my suitcase up against the door, both of them. Just thinking to myself, fucking hell, at least if anything happens, we're barricaded. Bearing in mind, minimal people knew that I had gone. So I think at the time, I don't even think I know if I told you that I was going. Can't remember.
No, I remember you telling me that you found the guy, that you were going to go, but around specific dates and stuff like that. No, I didn't.
So I know my mum, obviously my mum knew, my dad knew, my uncle Junior knew, Mrs.'s parents knew, and that was it. I told limited people. Like I just went. I thought, like no one needs to know. Why do people need to know? Like, I'm doing it for myself at the end of the day. So then I've gone and done that. The next day we've woke up, and it's the day where I'm going to see the guy. Walk into his surgery, and really friendly, like the lady, like his secretary lady, and like the staff and that, and other staff there. They introduced me. So before we even had started any treatment or talking or filling out any forms, it was like, welcome, man. Like, nice to meet you. Tell me your story. Tell me, like, obviously, it's good to meet you after finally Skyping you and whatnot and this and that. And we were just talking about different things, about different people that he's treated for cluster headaches and other neurological conditions and other pain management things. So he filled the form out, gave me like an ECG, did my blood pressure, all the usual bits and bobs. And he was like, you ready for this? Are you sure you want to do it? And I was like, yeah. So it's basically like a concoction of drugs through like an IV line, and you sit there for like an hour and 40 minutes where they put the needle into your arm, a concoction of drugs. I've still got all the paperwork downstairs. And I was just sat there in this room on this bed with the TV on while he pumped these drugs into me. He's telling me what the sensation is going to be. I remember him saying clearly, he was like, when it starts to go in, you're going to feel like red ants are all around your groinal area. And I was like, oh. I said, what do you mean? He was like, imagine something, loads of ants underneath your skin around your groinal area. That's going to be a sensation. He said, don't worry, it's normal. Everyone gets it. So bearing in mind, the reality started to kick in now. I'm thinking to myself, fucking hell, I'm in this doctor's surgery in America. I'm hooked up to fucking IV arm. He told me what the drugs that are in it, and I've seen him take them out of the vials and put them into this thing. But ultimately, like, if this fucking shit goes wrong, like, what the fuck? But I was almost like, you know what? It is what it is. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. Long story short, had that done. I remember gripping my missus's hand, and they started to pump it in, and my groins, literally the ant sensation.
Makes me feel funny now, just sitting here.
Mate, literally, it was like down. It was like that. It was down to like my mid quad, up to like the lower part of my abs. It just felt like someone had put a bucket of red ants and thrown them over me, and it was just crawling and burning. And I was like, "Oh my god!" Squeezing my missus' hand. Yeah. Then he said it won't last long. It'll be gone after about a minute and a half. So bear in mind, I'm just going like humming. And just, so I can't remember what I was doing. And then that sensation went, and then that was it. The IV was done. They said, right, we're going to keep you here for the next day to do your ops and review you, just to make sure that nothing adverse happens, and then you'll be good to go. So I was like, right, fucking hell, that's like very strange, but fair be. And then stayed there. I had an attack later on while I was there, and the next day I had another attack. So from the time of having that thing, I think I had 3 attacks. But at that time, I was having more than 3 on average. So that was already less than what I was having already. But I didn't want to think, oh wow, like it's worked already. Like fucking hell, that's great. Like I didn't think that. But then the next day, it took like 3 or 4 days because we hung around. It took like 3 or 4 days for it to build up in my system, for my system to adapt to it. And then the attacks like dampened right down to the point where it was like manageable. Like the normal headache was at like a 4 or a 5, but when the attack was coming on, I was having like 1, and it was lasting like 40 minutes. I was thinking, fucking hell, this is great. Nearly just had 7 months of being fucking absolutely battered 7 times a day, and now like after 3 or 4 days, it's like I'm down to having 1 attack. Feels like semi-normal. I might be able to do some normal stuff again. We left there, flew back via New York. Spent a day in New York. That was our stopover, day and night in New York, and then came back to the Northeast. And then that lasted so that was February. That was in the February. That lasted. That lasted around the end of April, late April. That lasted, where I was like, they started to slowly creep back up again, where I was getting like 1 and 2, but they were predominantly in the evenings again. And then gradually over a period of time, that lasted a period of time where I was getting like 1 and 2, and it stayed like that for a good while. And then they crept back up, and then eventually, I think after about just under 6 months, it sort of like wore back down, and then I was just back to fucking square one again.
So, I know that. Is it fair to say that the trip to America worked, if only it gave you 2-3 months of respite?
If I had to do it again, I would do exactly the same thing again, because the way that I was in, the mental state I was in, and like the physical state I was in, taking all these drugs and like not thinking for myself, not being able to exercise, like to be honest, I don't think I would have lasted much longer if I hadn't have gone. Like something would have happened. Something would have had to have give. There's only so much battering that your mind can take and that your body can take at once. And for me at that time, he was my savior, because I truly believe if I didn't go to see him, I wouldn't be here now, because the mental strain was just too much, way too much. There's a lot to comprehend. Like there's a lot of battles come down to, like, you can be as physically strong as you want. If your brain isn't half as strong as that, you don't stand a chance.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was neither physically, when I took the morphine, I was neither physically strong or mentally strong. I was completely drained. Like my body was just enough. It's almost like I'd had enough. I didn't want to see anyone. I didn't want to be around anyone. I didn't answer my phone. Didn't reply to people's messages. Like even my missus, like I didn't want to be around her. I didn't want to be around anyone. I wanted to keep myself to myself. So I wanted to lock myself in a room and fucking just like be by myself. I started to feel sorry for myself, and anyone that knows me, it's not me. I don't ever feel sorry for myself. Like, so would I do it again? Yes, I would, because for me, he saved my life, in the sense of he gave me time to be able to build myself back up slowly. Like, since you've known me, when have you ever known me to be 16 and a half stone? Like regularly, I'm 13 stone max, 13 and a half max, I'd say. Like I was like 16 and a half stone. None of my clothes fit me. Like not even t-shirts, boxer shorts, jeans, jogging bottoms, nothing. None of my stuff fit me. Like not being able to exercise, eating junk, and just like walking up the stairs, and I was sweating. Like just wasn't me. I just wasn't myself. And it was almost like, for me to be able to get into a routine of being able to do things again, whether it be like I had a cross trainer in my spare room, going on the cross trainer every day, 60 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, or till I'd done 10 miles, like controlling my diet, back to eating like not basic food, but cutting out all the junk food, the fizzy pop, the chocolate, the crisps, getting back into a routine of being myself again. So then if I do then suddenly get dropped with it again, hopefully in that time I would have been able to be back at a stronger place, being able to protect myself. So having the mental strength to think, nah, you don't need to do that, don't do it. Or you don't need to eat that, don't eat that. Like this is only going to last 45 minutes. Just drive through the pain and get on with it. Like, so that enabled me to be able to do that, to be honest.
There was a picture that I remember you put on social media, and sometimes you bring it back up. I think when obviously, you see everywhere now with like social media, there's the sort of get fit, or in 30 days, lose this in 30 days. And you put that picture up, which is a before and after of when you talk about being sort of 16 and a half stone to how you look now. And, you are unrecognizable. I think that's what's quite inspiring in what you do now as a job as a personal trainer is, what you ask of people is only what you've done yourself. You're not saying, you're not still 16 and a half stone telling people how to be fit and healthy. You are saying like, look, this was me. Like I have done it. Here is and you continue to keep that, healthy and fit lifestyle and appearance. And I think it's also massive that people underestimate the strength that you need to build within your mind. You can see muscles, you can see six packs, abs, everything you want. However, you never really see the strength of someone's mentality, if that's fair to say.
Mm-hmm.
There's not really, people don't talk about strength training for the brain. People never talk about it.
Mental strength and your health are the two biggest things. You can have all the muscles in the world, doesn't matter. That's why I say train for health and not looks. People might think, what do you mean train for health and not looks? That's nonsense. No, it's not. Like if your body is healthy, you stand more chance of fighting off any disease, any virus, any sort of condition. If your body is not healthy, you're making yourself worse. You're putting yourself at a higher risk. So you can have all these muscles. There's plenty of people that have got muscles, but doesn't mean that they're healthy. Like to have muscle, I think that's the biggest thing within fitness. People think that because someone looks a certain way, oh yeah, he's got a six pack, his core must be really strong. No, his body fat's just low enough so you can see a six pack. Like don't necessarily mean like that he's healthy. Like to look a certain way and to actually be something is two completely different things.
Yeah, and you don't also have to have a six pack to be happy. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
you know, I've rocked a dad bod, you know, for numerous years, and I was I was good with it. You know, I'll be honest. I'll let you into a little secret. Some girls dig a dad bod. There you go. You heard it here. But no, I mean, I think it's really inspirational what you've had to deal with and what you continue to deal with. I think, you know, you outwardly portray a positive mentality and a positive image. And, you know, whether that's the 40 miles on the bike ride or anything else like that. I just want to touch on one thing, and I'm curious, it more than anything. Obviously, when you're at your worst and the video viraled, there was a Just Giving that was set up for you. There was also like a charity game that I played in myself, and it's not a case. I don't even know what the total was that was raised, to be honest, and I'm not really interested in even where that money went that was raised. I'm curious to ask. A lot of people I know at the time, or within my circle of people that I know, sort of contributed to that. But did people, even now, do people still stay in contact with you? Or because I'm bad at this with charity, right? Sometimes I'll see something, I'll go, that's awful, and I will make a contribution towards it. You know, numerous Just Giving of strangers, let alone people that I know. But I very rarely follow up that Just Giving page, or I very rarely look at that person to go like, oh, what happened? You almost do it sometimes out of guilt. Sometimes you do it because you think, what's a fiver to me when this person's going through this, and you can see, or you relate to it, like obviously JJ touched on. Do you have people still now that check in and ask how you're getting on, or do people now just assume that you're a-okay because they see you sort of doing bike rides and living a life?
People, well, obviously the people that I know, like my circle of friends is fairly small, to be honest. So a lot of the people that I speak to daily, weekly, whatever, like they know what my struggles are still in and out. Like that that money that was raised helped me massively in the sense of I wouldn't have been able to go to America and pay for that, for example. I wouldn't have been able to have like the device that I use, which at the minute is broken. I can't get that sorted until this whole COVID thing dies down, but that's another story. So I'm grateful for that, because those things, until my device broke, was making my quality of life even better, to the point where it's like, yeah, I might have one attack a day or one every other day, but it might only last 40 minutes instead of being like 3 hours. Like, and although I don't sleep, like, I don't sleep, it's like, if I have an attack, or I can feel an attack coming on, I had something to go to, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you haven't got anything to go to, you've literally just got to rely on your will. Whereas if you've got something to go to and you know that it has helped you and it can help you, you've got that like security blanket of knowing that, you know what, I'm going to use this. This might even like abort the attack or lower like my constant headache pain. So in that sense, yeah, it's been great. But like I said, the device isn't working at the minute. I actually got a phone call on Thursday around me the other day to say, obviously they haven't been able to see me due to this whole COVID thing. They've got a phone call on Thursday afternoon to talk about that, to see what they're going to do next. But yeah, there are people that still check in on me just to see how that I am, and even people that I don't speak to regularly, like people that have got my number or have me on Facebook or Instagram, still message me and be like, "Oh, how's it going? Blah blah blah. How's it going?" Like, if someone asks me, like, yeah, I've got nothing to like be ashamed of. I just tell them as it is. Like, yeah, I still do have rough times, but it's what it is. What am I meant to do? Sit there and wallow in my own self pity? Oh, I haven't got this or I haven't got that. Like, that's the problem. A lot of people worry about what they haven't got.
Massive point.
You're worrying about what you haven't got. You've got your health. There's things that you can do to control your health. Like, this is another thing, like where you say about the whole COVID thing, like people worry about catching it, or worry about, oh, this is, it's so deadly, it's this, it's that. But they do actions every day which are so counterproductive to making themselves better or to making themselves stronger. It makes me think, you really don't value your health, or you really don't. You say something, but you don't actually mean it. Because if you actually did mean it, you would do certain things to make your chances of being fit and well higher.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Like, you can't do things that are counterproductive, or not, openly know are not good for you. And then if you do catch like some sort of virus and disease, like be like, oh, but I'm so unlucky. No, you're not unlucky. Like, I'm unlucky because I'm in a situation where I've had something for over half my life. Like you say, there's no cure for it. There's preventatives that can potentially help you, but it ultimately, like, a preventative and a cure are two different things. So a preventative might help you or lessen the pain, but it doesn't stop it. So as far as I am, like, I'm going to have this for the rest of my life. So for me to be able to feel sorry for myself is not going to make any ounce of a difference. You have to do all the things that you can do to help yourself. If you don't want to help yourself, you can't then complain. People don't value their health until something forces them to. But then by then, sometimes it's too late.
Yeah.
So with my advice to anyone that has some sort of condition, or is easily scared or easily influenced of like health problems or health concerns, whether it be like cancer, or whether it be I don't know, diabetes, or whether it be even something as basic as like you putting on weight, you can control certain aspects of that. Like, don't be fooled into thinking that, oh, if I get it, I was just really unlucky. You sometimes you make your own luck. So if you're a constant smoker and you chain smoke 50 fags a day, you then go home every night and you have 3 glasses of wine, you're putting yourself at a higher risk. No one's telling you have to do that. Like, so if something does happen to you, you then can't look for sympathy because you've contributed to it, if that makes sense. There's other people that haven't contributed to it. There's other people that don't have any control over certain things other than, like for me, exercise and like keeping myself active and eating as healthily as I can. They're things that I can control that are going to help me be better. So in that sense, I find it very hard to like sympathize with people, especially in this day and age, because a lot of people don't want to help themselves. Actions is always going to speak louder than words.
No, very, very good point. I think people are guilty of always reacting, to a scenario rather than looking at
Yeah,
potentially preventing a scenario happening in the first place. I think we're very good at finding excuses as to why we can't do something, and then
yeah.
obviously a result of that then happens, and it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And it's like, well, let's look at how you got here.
In the first
It,
place.
yeah, if there was anyone out there, obviously, who's listening to this now, who's battling with any sort of, I'd say, long-term illness, or maybe something similar to what you've had, something that's had like an impact that perhaps they're not sharing with other people, that they've kept a secret. Do you have any advice or pearls of wisdom that you could pass on to those sort of people, do you think?
Ooh, I would say do some research for yourself, because there's information out there on everything. It's just a case of looking and sticking with it. If you can, speak to people, but it also has to be the right person that you feel like you're speaking to. Like, I still see a counsellor now, but like, she doesn't necessarily understand what I go through and what I've been through, but it's a way for me to be able to let off some steam and say how I've been feeling over the last month or so, because it's easier for me to do it through someone who has no emotional attachment to me. So if I then say, like, I feel a certain way, right, you're one of my good mates, my mum's my mum, my dad's my dad, my missus is my missus, I'd rather speak to her, the counsellor, than tell any of you, because you've got emotional attachment to me. You're going to want to check on me. You're going to want to make sure that I'm all right. But I'm not looking for someone to be checking on me. Sometimes you just need that release of letting them know, actually, it's good to be able to just tell that person how I'm feeling. And then maybe they might be able to offer you some sort of like advice. And you know that there's going to be no comeback from that other than like that person checking on you. But because they haven't got an emotional attachment, it's their job. It's sort of different to someone who is like your best friend or your parent. So I would say always talk, but make sure you talk to the right person. Like, there's nothing wrong with speaking to a counsellor. Like I say, I speak to a counsellor fairly often, maybe once every 3 weeks. Just to, whether I'm had a good 3 weeks, whether I've had a bad 3 weeks, doesn't matter. That routine of knowing that if I'm in there for 10 minutes, good. If I'm in there for 2 hours, good. Like, you've obviously needed to speak about those times. You've needed that time to be able to release that information or whatever is going on in your head. It doesn't even necessarily have to be about your issue or your problem. Like, sometimes people don't realize certain other things can control the way that you feel, like social media, for example. Like,
Well,
you know me well.
we're about to touch on this
you
now.
you
My final
you
two
you you
questions.
you mentioned it, like, earlier, in the sense of, I'm very opinionated, and if I believe in something, like, it's either from me researching it myself, or it's I've learned it through an experience of myself. Like, there's stuff, like, we're talking about one condition now: cluster headache, chronic cluster headache. That's the word. Chronic, episodic, chronic.
Ah,
Right.
okay.
So from earlier. So that's one condition for me. I've got at least 4 other conditions that I deal with, like, that affect me really, really badly. But guess what? To some people on Instagram, because of the way that I post, or the way that I say things, or the way that I, like, carry myself, like, they'll think, oh, he's a dickhead. Like, who do you think he is? Yeah, you might think that, but to be honest, I couldn't give a fuck what anyone else thinks.
Yeah,
And
you're
that is
very.
the blatant honesty. I'm at the point where it's like, why should I ever be concerned over what anyone else thinks? If it's my view, it's my view. If they don't like it, unfollow me. Like, it does it. Like, people that know you know you. The people that know you will know where you're coming from within some extent, to some extent. So they're the ones that matter. People do things on social media just to, like, try to either fit in, or to try to, like, be someone that they're not. Like, I just don't. That's just wasted energy to me. Completely wasted energy. Like, if you're going to do something, make sure you're doing it for yourself. Make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, and don't worry about how many likes you've got, or what's that person going to think if I post that. Like, who cares? People will engage. People will engage with it, and people won't. The ones who will engage with it, or will ask you a question off of the back of something that you've posted, you've helped them then, because if they're asking a question, they've obviously wanted to ask that question for a while. So you've helped them. So you've helped one person. So be it. You've helped one person. You've said it, you've seen it, and you've helped one person. Like, if it hasn't helped anyone else, so be it. Like, you can't go through life thinking of worrying about what other people think. Like, that is so counterproductive and so energy draining. Like, so many people in this day and age put a smoke screen up, or like some sort of portrayal of themselves, because they want to impress this person, or they want to impress that person, or they want to be seen as they've got the latest this, or they've got the latest that. Who gives a fuck? Like, I've had people say to me, oh, well, you drive a Mini, like, well, your job, you could get a decent car. Cars don't mean anything to me. Couldn't give a fuck. Like, it gets me from A to B. Yeah, my Mini cost me £2,000. Who cares? I'm not bothered. Like, that doesn't bother me. Like, for me, that when you go through certain things in your life, you get to realize what the real important things are. Having good people around you, having your health first and foremost, and doing things to make yourself better every day. For me, getting up every morning is a massive achievement. Like, whether I'm going for a run, whether I'm taking my daughter to nursery, Like, that's a massive achievement because I know what I've been through that night. So I sleep with this by the side of my bed.
Jesus, that's massive. Obviously, some people listening to this, what Nathan's obviously showing is a oxygen tank, which is, I'm going to probably say, is around the same size as like a fire extinguisher that you would see in a building, if not
Yeah,
bigger.
so like one of the bigger ones. So I sleep with that by the side of my bed. So every night, sometime give or take, for the last 10 days, I'd say I've been on that thing every night. Well, I've had to change the bottle yesterday, but I've been on that every night. Like, yeah, I'll have an attack. But guess what? Even if I sleep for 3 hours or I sleep for 2 hours, I'm gonna get up in the morning because I've got a daughter. Like, and I want to spend as much time with her as I can while I'm in this lockdown. Like, I could quite easily lie in bed and just do nothing and feel sorry for myself. But what's that going to achieve? What image does that give to my daughter? Oh, daddy's in bed. Like I want to spend time with her. So you've got to look at the bigger picture of like what's best for you and working for yourself, taking the positives out of things. Like, yeah, getting up every day is a blessing for me, but there's some person that's gone to sleep and not woken up.
Mm.
Like
Yeah, you're
waking
right.
up is a blessing. Not every single day is promised. So in the sense of that, don't be naive to think that you're guaranteed to wake up tomorrow, because you could wake up tomorrow with some sort of pain or some sort of ache. Touch wood, this doesn't happen to anyone, but you could wake up with some sort of pain in the morning in your chest and you could have a heart attack. You didn't know that was coming. Like, people take things for granted too much, and health is probably the thing that people take for granted the most. When a lot of your health is within your control.
No, you're right. And I think, you've hit the nail on the head there. You went to bed necessarily as a 12, 13-year-old and woke up the next day, one day, with a headache. And look what's come off that.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? For the first 12 years
Yeah.
of your life, it was just normal, like say, that would be an offensive saying normal, but, regular childhood. You went to bed one night, woke up the next day, had a sort of a pain as you described, and look what that turned into. Now, there's no reason why that couldn't happen to absolutely
Anyone.
anyone. And that's not scaremongering. It's just that's obviously shaped the way that you
It's
now
the
view
reality.
life. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the reality of it. Like, you've got to be realistic to a certain degree. You've got to be prepared. Everyone's prepared to take the good, but at some stage you're gonna get bad. Throughout a
Mm.
lifespan of 60 years minimum, 70 years, you're going to get bad. So what are you doing to prepare yourself for that bad stage? Because believe it or not, everyone's going to have some sort of bad stage, whether it be a mental health issue, whether it be an illness, whether it be a condition, like whether it be a diet problem or a stomach problem. Everyone's going to have some sort of bad stage. But what are you going to do to prepare yourself for that bad stage? The more prepared you are for any eventuality, the more capable you are of dealing with it when it comes.
100%. And final question, because we've sort of answered my social media one that I ask everyone. The second one would be, obviously, I appreciate you're a big advocate of talking to people with the counsellor. How do you feel now, having shared probably things now with us and anyone who listens that you probably haven't shared before to, say, the masses? How do you feel for sort of talking about your past and getting potentially things off your chest?
For me, I don't really have a. The first part of this, like, interview or this talk, it was kind of upsetting because you take yourself to a place where you probably haven't been to
Mm.
for like a period of time, and it was quite upsetting. But it is what it is at the end of the day. I've got through that stage, so it's like onwards and upwards, I guess. You control what you can control and don't worry about what you can't. That's the best way to live. That's the way that I live. Control what you can and don't worry about what you can't, and prepare yourself for every eventuality where possible.
No, I agree, mate. And I'm not just saying this because obviously you're a good friend of mine, but I do find you inspirational. You deal with things. Sometimes there's times where I've thought of you when I'm having bad days, and I try to take energy from my friends and people that I know, that there's always someone potentially worse off than me. That doesn't mean that it's not taken away from people that are feeling bad, but there are people that that they've also gone through hard times and they have come through the other side. And you can take a lot of inspiration and, knowing that there's people out there that you can speak to. I know with your social media, yes, there will be quite a strong point of view. However, like you've said, it engages conversation. People still reach out, whether to talk to you about it one way or the other. So I think people do want to talk. I think they just, like you say, need to find the right person to speak to. And I really want to say thank you once again for being so open about this. I'm sure I've had numerous people reach out to JJ already. I'm sure people will reach out to yourself. I appreciate you making yourself available for people to reach out to. And yeah, I just want to say thank you once again. And if people, I hope, have found this insightful and relatable, and again can see what we're trying to create here is just an atmosphere where people can be honest about how they feel, why they feel a certain way, and that they can reach out and talk. There is a lot of power in talking. Don't let pride get in the way. It's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to not do anything with not being okay. Nathan, thank you, mate, once again. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'll see you soon, and good luck with the call on Thursday.
Cheers, man.
Cheers, mate. Take care.
Peace, bro. Later.